He's the academic who's taken the internet by storm with this damning analysis of woke Britain.
A revolution is sweeping through Britain. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about mass uncontrolled immigration. I'm talking about the fact that we can't even control our own borders. I'm talking about a stifling political correctness.
That sensational clip from best-selling author and Professor Matt Goodwin has already been watched by a staggering 2.5 million people, and the number keeps rising. It's fair to say that it's breaking the internet. The Prof reckons a revolution is coming and millions of people have had enough of the country being dragged into the gutter. Well, he's with me now live in the studio. Matthew Goodwin, great to have you.
Good evening.
You dropped this video a couple of days ago. You were hoping for some kind of reaction, perhaps not this big. Why has it resonated with so many people?
I think, as I say in the video, I think millions of people are looking at Britain and feeling as though we're not just going through political change. We're in the grip of a profound cultural revolution, which is not only about the woke takeover of institutions, but is about mass migration, not controlling our borders, what's happening in schools, the fact we're exposing children to dangerous and radical ideas that have no basis in science. And many people are looking at left and right and just thinking, firstly, nobody's really talking about this, and secondly, nobody really has an answer to this. And I think what I tried to do, and what I'm trying to do through social media and so on, is give people out there a sense that actually somebody is in the public square giving those people a voice, a bit like you're doing with your show and your work as well, Mark.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at some of the things that you mentioned in that video, first of all, what's being taught in schools. So you've got gender ideology. I think most people would be very, very accepting of someone that chooses to change their name, identify by a different gender as an adult. But at school, gender ideology, which says you can change your biological sex, is very contested, but it's being taught as fact in schools, as you say, not rooted in science, or controversial critical race theory, which effectively says that you are racist based upon the colour of your skin. Again, contentious, let's debate it, but it's being taught as fact.
It's not contentious, it's a conspiracy theory, I would argue. It's not based on scientific knowledge, it's not based on evidence. So what we're doing, and this is why I've got increasingly concerned about these issues, and I think many people watching this show are concerned about what's happening, is we are basically exposing children to radical belief systems which are very divisive, that are inherently divisive, and which are really geared towards pitting different groups against one another along the lines of race, or breaking down the boundaries around things like sex, sex-based rights, family, national identity, the state intervening in a way that it didn't used to do, that intervening in what should be the role of the family and the role of parents. And I think, the problem today, Mark, is no mainstream party, including the Conservatives, by the way, are seriously addressing these issues. They don't have a plan for addressing these issues.
And it's happened on their watch.
And it's happened on their watch. And I've spent the last 3 years fighting to defend free speech in the universities, trying to basically push back against a lot of this sort of hard left woke takeover. And I'm now convinced that we basically need to be doing that across society. We need to be looking at schools, we need to be looking at civil service, we need to be looking at media, the media landscape,
corporations,
the institutions, corporations. We need to be basically shaking up the public square and ensuring there's a much wider range of people with different values, with different voices in that public square.
Now, the great irony is that this powerful elite who have so much influence on our society hate your book, and they're furious with this campaign. You've triggered a lot of powerful people who say that they are not the elite.
Yeah, you see, the first thing I've said is I'll debate anybody about these issues, and remarkably, nobody's taken me up on that offer yet.
You've invited Alistair Campbell.
Yeah, I invited Alistair Campbell to a debate, and he said, well, why would I have this debate? My book that was then spent longer in the bestseller list than Alistair Campbell's. I've asked James O'Brien for a debate. He didn't want to have one. I think the basic issue here is because I think even they know they have become associated with ideas that have no real basis in evidence. And so what I'm trying to do with this community that I'm trying to build, people who are interested in having a different conversation about the country, is try and give people a sense of courage, trying to give people a sense that actually we can stand up and call this out. Wherever you are on the political spectrum, right, left, centre, whatever, you can stand up and say, this is actually dividing our society. It's not actually helping our society.
That's right. The old metric of left and right is completely wrong, isn't it? Because these labels get thrown around. And in fact, we've got people watching this show who are perhaps lifelong Labour supporters who hate the woke stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So the old left don't like it because basically it just violates their sense of class solidarity. The right certainly don't like it because it undermines culture, identity and our shared sense of history. And I think, we're on the cusp of a massive year in British politics, 2024. Yeah. And I think, if you look at where the parties are, there is this enormous space now on the landscape for something different, for something that is basically saying these parties are not defending your economic, your cultural and your national security. And we need something...
immigration, of course.
We need something different.
Net migration, 600,000 a year.
Well,
illegal immigration as well. And apparently you're a bad person if you think that's wrong.
It's also the fact that we are completely addicted to a political economy that is based on cheap labour and serving the interests of big business over our wider community. Now, the left used to care about that. The left used to care about workers. It used to care about things like inequality and so on. What's happened is that the elite left have basically gone all in on these wacky academic theories, which give them a sense of superiority, basically, gives them a sense of moral righteousness over everybody else. Yeah, it's all about how they derive social status. They derive status by saying, I believe in intersectionality. I believe in whiteness. I believe in white privilege. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. These academic theories really do not stand up to the evidence.
And can we talk about the chasm between these luxury beliefs, which make you look like a very nice person on Twitter, Gary Lineker, Carol Vorderman...
these are minority beliefs, by the way.
Right. Yeah. So Gary Lineker has today said that, he sort of backs Just Stop Oil, and we know what Vorderman has said about, Conservative supporters and all the rest of it. But these people have... they're entitled to their view, right? It's free speech. But they have these luxury beliefs because they're not impacted by issues like unchecked migration.
Yeah, so, that's the definition of luxury beliefs. They're preached by the elite who don't suffer the consequences of those decisions, but they're also preached by the elite because they bring them status from other elites. If you take Gary Lineker as an example, many of the things he said about the government's migration policy, about Rwanda, this is a minority view. More people in Britain today support the Rwanda policy than oppose it. More people want immigration controls. They want to live in a society with strong borders. Why is that, Mark? Because it's their home. Their country is their home. They want their home to be ordered and stable and secure. So on a lot of these radical woke ideas and beliefs, what you're finding is that the 10, 20% are imposing their values on the rest of society, and people don't feel able, Mark, to stand up and say, I don't agree with that. And one of the reasons why I'm doing these videos, one of the reasons why I'm promoting this stuff on my Substack and Twitter is because, at a minimum, I want to show people that actually you can stand up and present an alternative argument to these dangerous belief systems, and we need more people to do that. That's why GB News and the Substacks and the YouTube channels and the shows are taking off. That's why, Mark, there is this alternative ecosystem, because the legacy media has failed to do its job in this area. And so it's up to others. It's up to mavericks and independents to do it.
And it hasn't just failed to do its job, it's wagged its finger at the public and said, you're bad people for thinking these things. Look, the clock's against us. Very briefly, is this the beginning of a political party?
I'm interested to see where it goes. I think it's certainly the beginning of a movement.
Could you not rule out becoming a politician and changing Britain in a very tangible way?
I think it's pretty obvious for everybody who's in this community, who's connecting with us on Twitter. I think they can see the direction of travel. I think they can see...
And for you as well, never say never?
I care as much about this country as the people out there.
So now let's get all the numbers out. We know Dan's got a massive audience. So how can people get involved? Substack, what is the best way?
Yeah, they can
website,
follow me on Twitter at GoodwinMJ.
GoodwinMJ on Twitter.
And they can sign up to Substack at mattgoodwin.org.
There you go. Always a cracking read, as is the book. We've got to name check the book as well. Come on.
Values, Voice and Virtue.
We've all got bills to pay, Matthew.
You don't make any money off books, I'll tell you that now.
The book is called?
Values, Voice and Virtue.
Brilliant stuff. Thrilled to have you in the studio. This will be an ongoing conversation. Professor Matthew Goodwin, thank you for joining us.